Christine Fair, who has spent a lifetime studying Pakistan's patronage of terror groups, is with us from the United States of America via Skype. Christine, how do you think Pakistan is going to react here on?
Pakistan has actually taken the approach of de-escalating, right? So, for example, I see a lot more similarities to Pakistan's response after Uri. If the Pakistan Air Force had come out, or worse, the Army had come out saying that, India was able to get bombs to target, killed a bunch of women and children, this is the kind of message that Pakistan's military would typically be distributing to whip up a frenzy domestically for some sort of powerful response. However, by taking this opposite approach, I actually see Pakistan trying to cast doubt on what India has done to try to create a space of not responding. And I think this, coupled with the mounting international pressure on Pakistan to simply take this on the chin, I think is a really important sign. Now, I want to add that even China, although China certainly supports Pakistan's use of terror in India, Pakistan has never taken any step to encourage Pakistan towards war, right? It even took this position in Kargil. So I don't expect that anyone is going to be encouraging Pakistan to do anything except shut up and take it. You had this coming. I do share the expectation that we're going to see, much more activity on the LOC. It's possible, as we saw, I think back in 2016, that there was actually shelling along the northern side of the IB. But I think if Pakistan continues this trajectory of simply rubbishing Indian claims, that I'm not expecting the kind of overreaction that some people are fearing, especially if the international community sits on Pakistan and tells it to take it like the grown-up, and this is actually the punishment that is so rightly deserved.
But let me briefly get you to comment on Pakistan's contradictions. You're right that they've chosen to hide behind deniability, well, like they did after Uri, Christine. But by the end of the evening, they were confronted with a barrage of angry opposition members, angry media questions. It was reminiscent, not as much, but somewhat reminiscent of what happened after Abbottabad, where people were saying,
actually,
were you sleeping?
That was the parallel that I was going to make, right?
Yeah.
And what happened after Abbottabad? I was in Pakistan when I was actually at the Marriott Hotel the week that bin Laden and I was dispatched to Junnit or the ocean. And I saw this firsthand. There was a lot of garrulous noise, but ultimately a technical story came that, the radars were down, this, that, and the other thing, that in fact that the Army was the victim here. And in fact, even the air chief wasn't even sacked, even though it was on his wake that took place. So like I said, it's very difficult to tell, but my sense is, based upon the initial approach from ISPR, is that they are going to say none of this really happened. India is just exaggerating. They will cite to other examples of India exaggeration. And I think that, coupled with a very firm international response, particularly a silent response from China. I don't expect to see China getting up in a swivel it publicly, but China does not want any kind of war to happen, because essentially when we saw this in Kargil, if in fact a conflict breaks out, beyond what was already happened, China's hand is going to be revealed to be absolutely empty. Right. So I think right now, what I'm seeing, and of course you guys are many hours ahead of me, I am seeing all of the signs that Pakistan might just take this on the chin.
Very interesting, and very different from the Air Marshal, who actually thinks that we haven't yet called Pakistan's bluff, that brace yourself
for some... By the way, he's correct. Both he and I can be correct at the same time.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because, this is, what we learned from Kargil is that limited conflicts are in fact very possible. But the issue is Pakistan now has the advantage of of basically being the second responder, right? It has the next play. Yeah. So Pakistan has the choice of continuing to de-escalate or escalate. So he's absolutely correct. We don't know if the bluff has been called.
Okay,
right?
let me take that back to the panel. General,
But can I just make one other point
sure.
that's really important for your listeners? As an American,
Yeah.
I think it's really important that Americans who might be watching your show right now understand that if this attack occurred as described, we should be grateful, as well as the Afghans. Jaish al-Mohammed's allies, including the Taliban, have not. In fact, Pakistanis themselves should be grateful. The individuals that have likely perished in this camp are responsible for killing tens of thousands of Pakistanis, hundreds of thousands of Afghans, as well as thousands of Americans. And so as an American, I hope that India has done what it said, because taking away these individuals from this planet makes all of our security much better, including the security of Pakistanis, although they don't want to admit it right now.
Since I think some panelists here are skeptical about your theory that Pakistan is going to take it on the chin, certainly Tilak Deveshwar and Air Marshal Sharma, General Malik more inclined to agree with you, General Dua making the point that if the costs are what we're already undertaking, so be it. But there are others who believe it's going to be much higher a cost, which could come our way.
So you have to remember, there's different ways of escalating, right? So when I say that they're going to take it on the chin, I am meaning it more in the context of what General Malik said, which is I'm going to be expecting activity along the LOC. I will not rule out activity on the northern part of the international border, as we saw back in 2016. But what I am saying is I don't expect Pakistan right now, based upon what I'm seeing, to take escalatory actions that involve things like the use of air power, right? So remember, when you think about, Pakistan calibrates violence all the time. It calibrates violence by choosing the location of violence, the vehicle of the violence, the kind of the violence, as well as the actual tactics used. So when I'm talking about taking on the chin, what I mean to say is I don't expect Pakistan to be using air assets. I'm expecting basically a ground response. And then also, let's be clear, Pakistan always has a petting zoo of terrorists that are already in place to conduct attacks, and that you also can't rule out, but that you would ordinarily expect from Pakistan, because Pakistan does that with great frequency, especially when you have a Pakistani prime minister talking about peace. Let's go back to the 30,000 level here for a minute, right? Why did this attack happen in the first place? I mean, there are a bunch of strategic reasons for it. One, to reclaim the initiative from AQIS and ISIS in Kashmir. One, I've argued this is the timing with respect to the election. The deep state benefits from having a muscular India come out of this election, because what it's doing in Pakistan right now is pretty brutal, right? It is primarily threatened by the PTM movement. It is doing things that Pakistanis are not very happy about, disappearing Pashtuns, disappearing journalists, including females. The only way it gets away with murdering all of the Pakistanis that it's going to have to murder to put down the PTM movement is by having a really terrifying India on the border, right? So let's go back to this level. And finally, we have Imran Khan, who was talking about peace. The Pakistan army is never going to tolerate peace. It never has, and it never will.
No.
So that's just go back to the full circle of how we got here today.
But then what next? And that's the point. What next?
What next?
What is this going to change? Because this has changed something fundamentally today, which is an attack inside Pakistan. Now, it's
nothing's going to change, Barka. That's the thing. I mean, what India has done today has mowed some important grass that needed to be mowed, right? Nothing fundamentally changes. India has